The presentation is in the bag, the event has happened, and I have played a whole bunch of Nintendo Switch. So we at Switch Force are ready to give you our full hands-on impressions and review. We've got a special guest who's played over 4 hours Switch, myself, Zach, yay! And joining us as the interviewers are Gabe and Jake from their home bases. Holding down the Midwest, Jake, what'd you think of the Switch event?
I didn't touch it. You did. That's what we're asking the questions.
Hey,
here,
we'll ask the questions here, boy.
Beautiful. Okay, well, I'll sit back and now we'll give you my thoughts.
Okay, so I want to start off with the most important question of all, because those Joy-Con controllers look absolutely tiny. Zach, how small are they?
They're real little. I have small hands. I would say I have probably like 15-year-old hands. And
15-year-old female hands, to be clear.
They felt small to me. Now, they're not like ridiculously small. Remember, the need for them to be small is in efforts to make this a hybrid portable home console. So they're smaller, but they're bigger than if like you take it into account that, hey, like if you chop the 3DS, like the control panels off, they would be bigger than that. They're just smaller than you'd expect from like an Xbox One or PS4 controller.
Do they feel like the original NES controller? Like that's what I'm imagining. That small square that fits in your hand, or
when you hold it horizontally?
Yes,
it is 1/3 to 1/2 the size.
Really?
So it's like, is it really the size of like the size of the Micro?
I get it's a little longer. It feels like to me a little thinner. I mean, the only time that the size impacted me was the first time I picked it up. It feels a little weird. And then when you're playing that sort of tablet mode or tabletop mode where you're holding the controller sideways, the Joy-Cons individually sideways for like Mario Kart, that was the only time that the tininess had any sort of impact on my gameplay. It was a little bit cramped to like drift with R and throw items with L while still pressing, gas and steering. Other than that, though, like it's something you get used to real fast.
Did you get to play with the like wrist strap attachment on the top of the Joy-Con when you hold it sideways?
Yes.
Does that
no, I didn't play with it sideways like that, but I did use it in 1-2 Switch, where it adds sort of I guess it's like bigger buttons, or a little bit more enhanced.
Do those come standard with the console? Those
you're getting 2 wrist straps with the 2 Joy-Cons.
Okay. Yeah, I just wonder if that, when you hold it sideways, that would make it a little bit bigger and feel more comfortable in your hands.
Maybe you could do that. I think, again, once you realize that this is a hybrid handheld, you'll be like, okay, it makes sense. The grip itself, like I mean, you can play it with the grip. I personally liked it better when they were split, because then you can create whatever sort of gap you want. The grip being like the housing for the 2 Joy-Con. And like again, after about 5 minutes, I forgot about it and got used to it. But it is a little bit of a small controller. The Pro controller, on the other hand, is absolutely amazing. So if you are worried, granted it is extra cost, but like that thing, I think that's going to be most people's go-to way to play this.
So does the Pro controller like feel like a Xbox controller? Like just like build quality, is it built well? Like,
it is very good build quality. I would say it's a step up even from the Wii U Pro controller, which I think a lot of people regard as a nice controller. It feels very solid. It has this really kind of cool opaqueness to it. There's a bit of an opacity to the sort of grayish clear plastics. You can see the innards of the controller, which I think is an interesting aesthetic, and kind of gives it its own unique flair. But it's a really good controller. I played Splatoon 2 with it. The gyro on that works phenomenally, and it's interesting because there's no sensor bar, right? So the fact that the gyro is working that well without having to like line it up or aim it to the bottom of your TV or the top is really nice. And that, I think, for any game, Zelda, Splatoon, I think that's going to be the go-to way. No one there was like bumbling around with the Joy-Con or the grip. I just think that, again, like if you want it to feel like a true home console, you're going to want to use the Pro. If you want it to feel like a hybrid, then you're going to have to deal with a little bit of the small size, the small form factor of the Joy-Con.
PS4 Pro is wireless, right?
The Pro controller?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Making sure.
Yeah, and that was a really, it was really reassuring that felt so good, because I will say the Joy-Con on the grip, the analog sticks are offset, and I feel like they're offset quite a bit. Like an Xbox One controller has offset joysticks, but it's to me a smaller offset a distance, and maybe it's also because they were so close together that it felt even more. But again, it's something you get over real quick. It was interesting that there's no D-pad on that left Joy-Con. It's 4 buttons so that they can be used, in multiplayer. So for example, like in Zelda, if it says like, oh, press left on the D-pad, you're pressing a physical button. Whereas if you have the Pro controller, then it's a D-pad.
Did you play Zelda with the Pro controller?
I did not. I don't even think... Actually, they did have that, but it was only...
Tabletop mode?
No, it was developer guided. So you couldn't... The developers were playing with the Pro, but you couldn't, yourself do that.
Okay.
Do the Joy-Con...
Another thing...
Oh, sorry. I was just going to ask really quickly, do the Joy-Con only charge then if they're connected to the screen and docked? Is that how they charge? Or...
That I'm not sure. There was quite a bit of confusion about some of the aspects, and again, like, no fault of the staff. They're just, helping with the event. I don't know if they're, they don't have connections to developers or anything. But for example, on the Joy-Con grip, there are 2 light bars that show 4 squares each, and I was under the impression that these were player indicators, like, oh, first player, second player, and I was told they were battery indicators, but I am confident that's not the case. I'm confident they're player indicators, because when you have the Joy-Con detached from the grip, on the inside, like the side that you wouldn't see if it was attached on to the grip or the tablet, there is the same bar, and it is definitely player indicator.
Okay. The other thing you had mentioned when we originally asked you what you thought about it, the bezel. And I hadn't even noticed that the bezel was so big until you mentioned it.
It's like really, really weird. And the reason I say it's weird is because, all things considered, like, the Vita technically has a giant bezel because the control... Yeah. But what makes it different is, like, the controls are on there, so your hands are covering it up. With the Switch, the bezel is, like, there by itself, right? There's nothing covering up because those Joy-Con are attached separately. And the only thing I don't like about it doesn't impede, like, the gameplay experience. It doesn't impede anything. The only thing I don't like is, to me, it gives off almost like a early 2000s / like dev kit look to what is otherwise a really, really well-built piece of tech. To me, that's the only thing from holding it back from being like a gorgeous unit. Now, when you set it up by itself, like I played Mario Kart sort of in that tabletop mode, use the kickstand, set it up, you don't notice it. It only becomes really apparent when you have the Joy-Con in handheld mode and you're, holding the tablet by itself. Then you're like, okay, this is a very large black bar around the screen. In addition to then the colored bars, the gray bars that the Joy-Con themselves provide. So it's a little bit of an odd form factor. I posted a video, or maybe I just showed you guys, of someone playing Zelda with it, and that's where it kind of is like a little like, whoa, it's a thick bezel. To me, it looks like the old iPhone or the old iPad before they were able to get the thinness and the form factor down.
Yeah. How heavy is the Switch?
It's a good weight. I didn't feel like it was too heavy. I don't think anyone's going to complain about it, like, oh, weighing you down. It has a very, like, solid feel, and that was something we had heard, I believe, before, that it felt really good, and they balanced it well, and I felt like it was a phenomenal weight. The Joy-Cons themselves also don't feel as light as you might think they would. Like, you look at those things, and you're like, man, I'm just going to, like, this is going to fly out of my hand. But it ends up feeling pretty good. The Pro Controller as well. Like, all in all, like, set games aside, set everything else aside, like, build quality, it's really nice. The screen looks really great. I saw some people, even Laura K. Dale was saying she preferred playing Breath of the Wild on the tablet than on the screen. I don't know if I'd go that far.
I don't know what sense that makes, but okay.
It does look very, very crisp, very, very clear, and I think it's a really, like, you will be impressed with, like, wow, this is, like, the highest quality portable game, system we've ever had.
Okay. Jake, any further questions for our potential candidate here?
Did you utilize the touchscreen at all, or?
There is nothing that utilized the touchscreen there that I was aware of. Reggie did mention that it's multi-touch. I don't even know if they mentioned that in the presentation. I might have missed it.
Probably didn't. No.
But Reggie said that, in his opening remarks for the day. It was very interesting. They packed about 150 of us into a very small room for Reggie to get up there for, like, literally, like, 7-8 minutes. But I guess it was just to reinforce the things from the day. And they had these, like, mock, like, scenario setups. They had, like, a plane. They had a diner. They had a car. So you could use the Switch in these, like, portable places. And that was kind of cool just to see, the different feels and looks. And I will say that even though they're a little tiny, like as a younger person, or as someone that, you know, lives with friends, a college kid, a younger brother, like that portable mode where you can pop them off and play like Mario Kart was brilliant, and I never felt like the screen was too small or too anything. Like I played against Becca, my girlfriend, split screen, and we raced in Mario Kart, and it felt like totally fine, enough screen real estate, enough space, didn't feel cramped, and it looked great, it felt great, and I think that is going to be one of the coolest ways to play. Unfortunately, there's like nothing that takes advantage of that when the system comes out. Mario Kart to me is like the best example of the Switch as a concept, and I wish they were launching with that, because I think it can utilize the Switch in like every form factor in a really appealing way.
I have a question, one more thing about the Joy-Con. Did you get to feel their super HD rumble where you can feel the number of ice cubes in a glass?
Yeah, that is really, really cool, and surprisingly works really well. And like at first when it was happening, I like didn't really process what was going on, but then I was like, oh my god, this is like some next level rumble. Because we played a mini game in 1-2 Switch where you have a number of marbles inside your Joy-Con, and you have to tilt it back and forth to try and determine how many there are, and it legitimately felt like they were like momentum rolling from one side to the other, and as you increase the incline, you know, they would slam against the other side, and you try to like feel and intuit how many marbles were there. You know, I tried to get a little crazy with it and tip the thing like way far, and it kind of then gave me like a clicking rumble, which I don't think was either supposed to happen, or I was sort of like messing with the calibration. But when you use like a normal person and not trying to break it, it was really actually really cool. I didn't get to do the water glass game, but I did milk some cow udders. And,
nice.
I was just asking Jacob that who thought that was a good idea, but whatever.
The thing I love about 1-2 Switch is that on screen it's those goofy people from the trailer. Like there's no like Mii's or Mario's. It's like physical actors, which I think is like a really weird idea. But the marble thing was cool. There was a nice little nuance where you could like you could set your guess in at like, okay, 4 marbles. And then you could hide your number and then change it, so you like try and trick the person who you're playing against, like, oh, maybe make them think there were 4, but really you're gonna like, nah, there was 3. And so that was really cool. The nice thing also is like everything worked. There was never an instance where something didn't work or something desynced or something, you know, got like screwy, or oh, they had to reset the calibration of the gyro or reset the haptic rumble, or like everything worked. One point that I will make is I had, and this could just be the way I was standing or me, the groove in the dock was not as obvious as I expected. So like when you're going to stick the tablet, the Switch into the dock, I needed some help. And they said it's because like, oh, they had the switches were like locked down to the table, so there was like a metal, you know, anchor or whatever you want to call it, like clamp on them. So they said that was like the issue. But I guess I expected to slide in a little bit nicer. I will say also, it's very easy to remove the Joy-Con and attach the Joy-Con onto the tablet. It's a little bit trickier to remove them from the grip, just because it's very small. You have to push the buttons on the back of the Joy-Con and then like pull them off the grip, and that was a little more cumbersome than I would have liked. But again, like really, that's like, you know, a minor complaint.
So just like overall like impressions of the hardware itself, because you know we've made videos talking about the software and the lack of software, whatever. But hardware itself, you're sold. It's good.
Yeah, I thought it was really, really impressive, and I think like, you know, you walk into this not knowing the launch lineup, I think it's a whole different ballgame, because I think the idea that they have presented here is a very fresh and unique one that is executed very well. This is something that could have been done very poorly, low build quality, you know, a lot of sort of kitschiness to it. It feels very well made, very high quality, and like what I like about it is that it's unlike any system in the past. You know, the games sure are very similar. The overall idea and concept at a whole level is still like a game console, but it's a new idea, and I love the flexibility of how it seemed to have effective uses and work in all these different scenarios. And I you know, outside of the bezel and maybe a little bit of an issue with the size of the Joy-Con, I was thoroughly impressed with the piece of hardware they've put out.
Awesome. So we'll let you know about the job.
Yeah, thank you. Do you want to know about the games at all real quick?
Go ahead.
Okay, so game-wise, Zelda's amazing. I don't know if there's much more to say there, except that it looks, plays, feels wonderful. Really impressed by some of just the the small tweaks and touches that they have put there. Just a couple quick highlights. One, when you use the glider, you can pull out your bow midair and go in this slow-mo and fire arrows from midair, and then go back to your glider, which is very, very nice. 2, you can ride the glider and land on horses, and then you can take horses to stables around the world and name them and register them for a rupee cost as your own horse. So we registered a bluish-gray horse named Storm. That was very nice. And I like the scope and the size of the world, and then the promise of a variety of enemies and areas. I saw a gigantic creature that was doing his thing. They tried to turn the camera away, but there was insinuation that there will be inter-enemy warfare, which I think is interesting. I pushed him on that, and he said he could not confirm or deny, but reminded me that he did turn the camera away earlier. So to me, that sounds like that's in, and that's cool. I saw some people say that they were worried that there is a lot of vast emptiness. Supposedly, like, the official response to that is that it's just for the demos. Not really sure what that means, but maybe they turn up the encounter rate on...
Yeah, maybe they just don't want to overwhelm people with a bunch of stuff. They just want to kind of keep it simple.
I mean, personally, I didn't have any issue with it, because I think it'd be dumb if there were just, like, little camps of enemies all over. But I did like, from what I saw, the variety of, like, okay, this one's inside this giant skull cave. This one's just out in the open. This one is... one was by these explosive barrels. There was a group of enemies by the sea, by a lake, I guess, and he shot an explosive barrel, and then the enemies all caught on fire and ran into the water to cool off, which I thought was a nice touch. Like, so that game is just going to be phenomenal. My only, like, and I don't know because they haven't said about it, is like, what's the main mission structure of that game? Are there main dungeons? There's over 100 of these shrines.
There are main dungeons.
Yeah, and I'm curious how those all play out and what they're like. I'm sure you guys notice in the trailers and stuff. There is like a Skyloft type area.
They showed one of the dungeons during the treehouse thing, but like they left it without completing it on purpose. Because they didn't want to spoil stuff, but it looked absolutely amazing. Like, the puzzles in it were great.
Cool, yeah, because a developer or a assistant took us through a shrine, and it was literally about like a 2-minute shrine. So I'm assuming there's bigger dungeons. But anyways, that game's phenomenal. The biggest surprise to me was this game Snipperclips that looked so weird, but it's this cooperative game that utilizes the Joy-Cons. Each person has a Joy-Con. You can do it on TV or tablet mode, which is how I played it. Tabletop, I guess, not tabletop. And it's just these weird challenges. You're two little, like, pieces of paper, basically, and you can, like, overlap each other to, like, cut sections off. So one of the little challenges would be to pop these balloons. So first we had to bring the balloons down by, like, jumping on each other and pulling them down, and then we had to, like, cut each other to a point so that we could then, like, press the point into the balloon and pop it. One where you had to get a ball down and then basically, like, carve into the other person a shape like a little bucket or a little hand so that they could hold the ball and carry it over the hoop. Just some really innovative ideas. And again, like, that tabletop mode, I think is something they need to highlight, because I feel like it's a really great feature and a really great resurgence of local multiplayer. And because there's no Mario Kart 8 Deluxe at launch, Snipperclips is going to be the game that does that. So that one is definitely one to keep your eye on. I can't imagine it being a full price title, but it was super fun. ARMS, while limited, was very cool. It's hard at those kind of events because everyone's just, like, mashing, and I was trying to understand the nuances of, like, is this a deep experience or just like a flail your arms? And it seems like there is depth there. It was just hard to really suss that out of the game when the other person is just going crazy.
Maybe we'll make another video, like, talking about the games, because there's some stuff on ARMS that we could, like, dive into. Yeah. Like the baseline mechanic of it is basically rock paper scissors, because there's blocking, there's grabbing, there's attacking, and certain you're supposed to do certain things while like, so if you're blocking, I'm supposed to go in for the grab, and vice versa. Yeah, like, there are, like, little nuances, and the treehouse presentation for ARM was actually, like, way cooler than I thought. It looks cool.
Yeah, and I hope there's some sort of, like, single player campaign there, because it would be nice to see it fully expand like Splatoon. And just last thoughts on Splatoon 2, phenomenal game, just as good as the first. Feels just like the first. So I really hope that they
apparently it's like they're calling it Splatoon 2, but, like, a lot of the stuff isn't super new. Like, it's just
my big question there is, are they including the old single player, a new single player, the old plus, like, some DLC type stuff? Because that to me really rounded out the initial package, and so I'd love to see that on the sequel. Oh, and then last thing I want to point out is that Mario Odyssey in person, like, it is notable that that game looks significantly better than 3D World or like Smash on Wii U.
Nice.
Great.
So, all in all, like, I came away really, like, set aside the launch lineup, right? You don't know any of that. I came away really impressed with the hardware. I came away really impressed with the controllers. A little bit of worry about the size, a little bit of worry about the bezel, and, you know, a lot of worry about the lineup going forward and sort of just the overall mentality that they have. But I was reading more this morning, and it sounds like the Wii U did not do well by third parties because they had so many Nintendo games at launch and so many games in general. And so part of the reason for this very whittled down lineup is in order to prove to third parties that games can sell. So when you have, you know, Just Dance and Skylanders is like two of the only games there, they're hoping that those sales will indicate like, hey, this thing, you know, can sell your game as opposed to being cannibalized by Mario, Zelda, Mario Kart, Splatoon, etc.
There's a much bigger problem there that we won't get into in this video, but maybe we can do a separate one on that.
Yeah. Nonetheless, like, I came away like really wanting to play more, and the whole plane ride back, I was like, I should have just taken one with me. But no, it was really fun to use and really exciting. And to me, like, I think that tabletop mode is something special. And frankly, I didn't use it in the handheld mode that much, just because when I was recording, you can't. So when you capture, as soon as you put that thing, pull that thing out of the dock, you know, it pulls the feed. So yeah, I didn't do that a lot, but when I did, it still feels great. And I think all in all, I think both of you, Compact South, will be really impressed with the build quality and just the overall like prowess that they had in designing that thing. It's a really great idea that is smartly executed, and now they just need the games and sort of the life cycle plan to really make this thing a hit, because that's kind of where things could go either way. The actual device itself, way stronger to me than the Wii, the Wii U, build quality wise, even much stronger than the 3DS. You know, the 3DS had some flimsy issues with sort of the hinges and whatnot, and, you know, maybe even the 3D to some people, but this like feels like a very, very sound and just, you know, fine-tuned piece of equipment.
Can't wait.
Cool. That will do it for our review and hands-on with the Switch. Let us know what you thought based on the videos and pictures and what we said today in the comments down below. We'll be back with a lot more Switch coverage as we continue our push towards launch. Until that time, though, for myself, Gabe, and Jake, Switch Force out.